A very popular request in the comments is how to judge changing lanes safely. So this video is all about that. Firstly, I'm going to talk about where you should be looking before you change lane, like your mirrors, your blind spot, sideways glance, and whether or not you should signal. Then I'm going to go for a drive with my new little friend here. This little camera I've purchased for my head, so you can see exactly what I see. Now, when I was testing it out, I did feel like a bit of a spanner until I looked in the mirror. And then I thought, 1980s, Miss Miyagi's Karate Kid. Woo! So, should you check your mirrors before changing lanes? Well, yeah, of course you do. You want to see what's coming up behind. The question is, what mirror is good for what? Well, this mirror is good for helping you judge distance. And then you'll use whichever wing mirror relates to which side you want to go. So if you're going to go over here, you're going to be checking these two mirrors. If you're going over there, you're going to be checking this mirror and the one you can't see over there, because obviously that's the direction you're going, so that's where you want to be looking. This mirror gives you a true image of how far things are behind, so it's much easier to judge how much time you've got to change lane. Whereas the wing mirrors make things look smaller, so they can look further away, so I wouldn't use the wing mirror to judge whether or not you should change lane. Of course, if you don't have this, or you drive a van or a truck and you only have your wing mirrors, of course you're going to have to rely on your wing mirrors. But if you do have an interior mirror, it's a lot better. However, a tip I can give you, if you can only see your car in the wing mirror and the car is taking up most of the wing mirror and you can't see it in the interior mirror, that car is definitely too close for you to change lane. But what about your blind spots or a sideways glance? The highway code recommends you do a sideways glance before you change lane. I think it's time for an illustration. Imagine you are driving this blue car. The yellow area behind you represents what you can see in your mirrors, and the yellow area in front of you represents what you can see in front of you, including your peripheral vision, but does not take into account blind spots from the A-pillars. Notice the area behind to the side of you that is not highlighted. This is your blind spot. However, this blind spot is not big enough to hide a car, but it may hide a motor-propelled bike. I found a motorbike too hard to draw, so just imagine a bike hiding in the area where the black car was. A quick sideways glance is all it takes to reveal the biker. However, if you're in lane 1 and you have more than one lane next to you, the second lane along has a far larger blind spot, one where even a large family car can hide, let alone a motorbike. In this situation, a quick sideways glance may not be enough. You may need to do a proper blind spot check where you look out of the side window and slightly behind. If both the black and blue cars decide to move to lane 2 at the same time, this could create a very dangerous situation. You may think the black car would not move to lane 2 if it could see the signal of the blue car. However, do not assume this, because not everybody uses their brain. Well, I hope my illustrator did a good job there. My illustrator being me. Time to move on to the signals. Should you signal if you're going to change lane? If you're on your own, there's really no need. You're only signaling to yourself. But if there's anyone behind or in front of you, yes, it's very important, because it tells them where you're going so they know where they can or cannot go. Makes it a lot safer. Also, don't put your signal on as you're changing lane, because it doesn't really help. I mean, it does help, helps you stand out. It's more noticeable that you're changing lane, that's great, but it's a lot more helpful if you put it on for 2 or 3 clicks before you change lane, so people have warning of what you're about to do instead of just what you're currently doing. So just coming onto a dual carriageway now. This is a slip road. Time to put the pedal to the metal and get the speed up. Here we go, 65 miles an hour. I have an ambulance in front of me into 4th gear, indicating right to warn people. Checking my wing mirror, no one's there. Checking the interior mirror, no one's there. Looks fairly clear, so I can just let the slip road push me out. This slip road, well, sorry, that slip road went to a main road, and this main road itself becomes a slip road. So I've got another slip road again now, so I'm just starting to check my mirrors to make sure it's safe. I'm signalling to warn people. People are staying behind, you can see there, it's quite safe, so just let the slip road push me out. I'm going to try and keep my distance now from the vehicles in front until I want to overtake. I want to maintain at least a 2-second gap in the dry and a 4-second gap in the wet. And the reason why it's a time gap instead of a distance gap is because the faster you go, the bigger the gap you need. So of course you would cover a lot more ground in 2 seconds at 60 miles an hour than you would in 2 seconds at 30 miles an hour. So we have a bridge up ahead, which is very handy because that's a good way to test your distance. When the ambulance in front goes under that bridge, it should take me at least 2 seconds before I go under the bridge. So it goes under the bridge into the shadow of the bridge, which is, I look at the shadow there, 1, 2. So there you go, I've got my 2 second gap because I could get to 2 seconds before I went into the shadow. Another way of doing it is to say only a fool breaks the 2 second rule, because it takes 2 seconds to say that. So this truck in front is going under the bridge into the shadow of the bridge now. Only a fool breaks the 2 second rule. So I could say that before I went into the shadow caused by the bridge, quite leisurely as well. So that was a healthy 2 seconds. So I want to plan overtaking this truck soon because I'm only doing 59 miles an hour. So I look at my interior mirror, I can see there's cars behind. They don't really seem to be catching. I look in my wing mirror, they're still behind. They are catching very slowly and they're a little bit close. So I'm not going to overtake on this occasion. I'll just keep my eye open for a gap. I'm looking ahead mostly. I've caught up with the truck, so I'm going to slow down a little bit just to increase my gap again. Looking at my interior mirror and my wing mirror, and I can see that they're all overtaking me. If I can see them in my interior mirror and my wing mirror, that means they are further back. If I can only see them in my wing mirror, such as this car here, see, I can't see them in my interior mirror, that means they're really close. If you're not sure, don't change lane. Only change lane if you feel the gap is big enough. Even if your passenger is telling you should change lane, only go when you feel it's safe. At the moment, it looks pretty clear. No one else behind me. Interior mirror looks clear. Wing mirror looks clear. So now I can indicate I have enough distance between me and the car in front. Quick sideways glance there just to make sure it's safe. There's no motorbikes hiding, and then I can change lane. And now I can accelerate up to 70 miles an hour to pass the truck. Try not to change lane too quickly. Don't steer the wheel very much because the car will swerve about quite a bit at these speeds. You really only have to turn the wheel a small amount. When you're planning to change lane, you shouldn't make other drivers slow down. You should be considerate to them. Of course, there are occasions where you will have to make people slow down if you're forced to change lane, but certainly don't be dangerous with your lane changes. Making people slam on the brakes is dangerous, so avoid that. At the moment doing 62, so I could do 70. Let's have a look in my mirrors. There is people behind, or should I say there are people behind for correct English, and they are catching and they're quite close. So I'm not going to change lane just yet. I'll wait for them to go past. And I check my mirrors regularly, but quite briefly. I'm actually looking at the mirrors a lot longer than I'd normally look because I'm trying to let you see it on camera. I normally do a really quick flick, and this is my second take doing this because the first take, the speed I look at the mirrors is so fast you couldn't see anything on camera. So I'm trying to deliberately, purposefully angle my head toward these mirrors a bit longer. The Polo has moved lanes, so now I can speed up to 70 miles an hour. There's no one in front of me, there's no need to change lane anymore. Going past this lorry now, so it's going to be time to move back to the left lane. Definitely not far enough in front of the lorry at the moment, can't see all of it in the interior mirror. Can see all of it in the interior mirror now, and in the wing mirror. It's quite far away now, so I'm going to indicate left, wing mirror again, quick sideways glance, and a tiny turn of the wheel to change lane. Still doing around 70 miles an hour. I have a slip road entering the main road in front of me at the moment. It looks clear. I may have to change lane or slow down if there was somebody else entering. I'm just going to check my wing mirror to make sure no idiot is trying to fly up the left side of me to pass me as I'm passing that slip road. It does happen sometimes. I am catching this lorry now, but I want to leave, so I'm not going to overtake it. I want to go towards the A120 Stansted Airport. So I'm just going to try and keep my distance. I've got a little bit close. He's going a little bit slower than I expected. So I'll just come off the gas, let the speed come down a couple of miles an hour so he gradually leaves me. So I'm doing 64 miles an hour. It's a 70 mile an hour limit, so I can potentially go faster. Let's push it up to 70. There it is, just like that. and oh, a car's just pulled in front of me, so I want to keep that distance. I just back off the speed a little bit now, let him get away. It's not always possible to keep a 2-second gap when people do that, or on slip roads, or when you have to change lane because of roadworks. That's a speed camera, fairly certain of that. I'm sure soon we'll see a police car at the side of the road waiting to pull people over. We'll see if I'm right. Yeah, so if you're on a slip road, you might not be able to keep your 2-second gap, or if you have to change lane because of roadworks, you might not be able to. But once you're in that lane, once you've changed lane, you maybe have had to change lane a little bit close to the car. Don't do it dangerously close, of course. Then you can just slow down a little bit and let that car get away from you. Or if someone pulls in front of you and closes off your 2-second gap, just slow down 1 or 2 miles an hour and let them gradually pull away from you. Aha! Here we go, there's the police car. Luckily I am doing under the speed limit, so they're waiting for anyone speeding. Definitely don't get away with speeding these days, so I would highly advise you follow the law. Okay, entering another slip road now. Always a good excuse to drop a couple of gears, floor the throttle, give it some revs, get the speed up. Try not to go slow when you're changing lane. Try and keep up with traffic. Going slow will get you in trouble. Indicating right now, you can start to see the traffic in my wing mirror. Someone next to me, but he's in the lane across. No one beside me, so I can just let the slip road drift me out. It's important to use a lot of the slip road, because that way people on the main road have time to slow down, time to change lane. Nervous drivers feel it's necessary to jump out as early as possible because they're nervous, and they're nervous about running out of slip road. But in actual fact, using more of the slip road is much safer, much easier. So I've got this lorry in front of me. I'm doing 64, he's doing 64. Quite surprised, I thought all lorries were actually limited to 56, but they seem to be able to go over 60 quite often. But now it's slowing down a bit, and again I'm now doing 60, so I'm looking to overtake. Starting to check my interior mirror and my right mirror, and I've got a white Mercedes catching me, so I'm not going to overtake just yet. And behind the white Mercedes is a Mercedes van, so I can't overtake there either. And if the white car catches up with me, they'll get the first opportunity, the white car behind, to move to the right lane to pass me, so I have to wait for them as well. But looks like they may not be going that much quicker, and at the moment it looks clear, so I'll indicate. Quick sideways glance, actually a bit more of a blind spot there because there's 2 lanes next to me, and then I change lane, accelerating up to 70 miles an hour, passing the lorry, and I will go back to the left lane soon when I've passed the lorry, because you should really drive in that lane normally. So centre mirror, left mirror, good distance. Traffic behind's good distance to indicate. Check again. Quick sideways glance and little movement of the steering wheel to change lane. Got a slip road coming onto this main road now. Looks clear. Keeping my speed up. I'd match the speed. I'll try and match their speed as they try to match my speed if they were coming out to make things safer. Or I'd move back to the right lane if it was safe to do that. Just finished the dual carriageway now, and I thought it'd be a good idea to make a point that when you're changing lane, and I already mentioned this, but don't slow down to change lane. It's a common thing new drivers do. They're starting to concentrate on the mirrors to see if they can pass, and they come off the gas and their speed starts to decrease, and everyone behind catches up and tries to overtake us, so we never get an opportunity to change lane. Really, it just takes practice, to be honest, because if you're concentrating your mirrors, obviously your energy is going there. You start to forget about your speed, and quite often people start to forget about their steering as well, and they start to drift to one side. It's just all part of the learning process. Some people learn quicker than others, but what's important is that you understand that you take as long as you take to learn, and that you try to stay positive and focus on what you're trying to achieve instead of worrying about how hard it is. This road here is a road learners tend to struggle with because of that reason, because of having to change lane. You have to change lane for the roundabouts sometimes, depends which way you want to go. And if you start concentrating on your mirrors to change lane, you slow down, everyone goes to overtake you and you never get to change lane. So therefore you go to the roundabout in the wrong lane, especially up this hill, because you do have to give it some welly to get up the hill. And it's important just to keep going with the flow of traffic And that way you'll find gaps. If everyone's doing roughly the same speed, people aren't passing each other, then you have gaps where you can change lane. So what do you think of the head cam? Is it helpful or is it just disorientating? Let me know in the comments. I want to reiterate what I said earlier about judgment. You could be in a car with a passenger and you need to change lane to get round a slower moving vehicle. And you don't change lane. You didn't think the gap was big enough. But the passenger says, you had loads of time, you should have changed lane. Why did you not go? You should have gone. Don't listen to them. A good supervisor, a good driving instructor helps you develop your own judgment. They don't try to push their own judgment onto you, because you cannot exchange judgment. You cannot be a great tennis player, really good at judging where to move and then go, I'll give my judgment to you. You try it out for 10 minutes, see how good you are at tennis. Doesn't work. You have to develop your own skills. You have to use your own eyes and your own senses and your own experience to judge if that gap was big enough. So let's say you miss that gap. And in hindsight, you may think, actually, that gap may have been big enough. That's you gaining experience, gaining judgment. Someone in the passenger seat shouting at you, or anyone else in the car, not necessarily even shouting at you, but just telling you that you should have gone then, is only going to leave you feeling more anxious and nervous, and it's going to stop you thinking for yourself, and it's encourage you to try and think, what do they want me to do? You're trying to please them instead of trying to please yourself. Therefore, you're not using your own senses to the best of your ability. And that happens on driving tests a lot as well, where a pupil on a driving test is trying to please the examiner. They're trying to do what they think the examiner wants to see instead of using their own judgment. That doesn't normally work. A little bit of advice for checking your mirrors: try not to look too long, because you won't see what's in front of you. If something in front of you starts slowing down, that could be quite dangerous if you've been looking too long behind. And also, because you're not looking in front of you, you may start losing your position in your lane. So keep them really brief. If you struggle to do them really quickly, maybe break them down. I generally check both mirrors together. I'll go centre, right, back to looking forwards. If you can't look that quickly, or you haven't got the experience yet to be able to quickly flick at the mirrors and judge what you're seeing really quickly, it takes you a little bit longer. Do one mirror at a time. So maybe check your centre mirror, look ahead. Check your wing mirror, look ahead. Breaking it down like that gives you a little bit longer on each mirror without what's in front of you, which is the most important thing at all times, because that's what you're driving into, without that getting too old. Do be considerate when you're changing lane. Don't make people slow down unless you have to. Definitely don't be dangerous, but sometimes you do have to make people slow down. That's why I said don't make people slow down unless you have to, because sometimes it's not avoidable. A good example would be you come into the end of your slip road. You're going to make someone slow down a little bit if you move out, or you're going to run out of slip road. I would make that person slow down. Your lane is closed and you need to move to a different lane. You're going to make someone slow down a little bit, or you're going to stop. I'd make someone slow down a little bit, because me making them slow down a little bit is far safer than stopping. This is where you have to use, again, your own judgment. Rules are important. Rules keep everything in order so people know where they stand and what to do, but I don't think anyone can successfully go through life completely following the rules to the nth degree. Put me in jail. Okay, that's what I'm saying. But let's say, you ever seen the film Dante's Peak, where that not tornado, what do you call them things, volcano erupts? And let's say that volcano is erupting, and you're in a car, and you can go away from that tornado, or you can go towards it. The road ahead, which you're allowed to drive down, takes you closer to the tornado, or you've got that one-way street, which is the wrong way for you, no entry on the left, which you could drive down and avoid the volcano. That I keep thinking tornado for some reason. I keep thinking of the film Twister as well. Quite like films, as it seems. I would go down the one-way street to avoid the pyroclastic flow gobbling me up. It may be against the law, but in that moment, it's the safer thing to do. And I would break the speed limit in that situation too, because at the end of the day, I'm either definitely going to die or maybe die. And I'll go with the maybe over the definite, even if it is breaking the rules. Of course, when you're driving, we're not talking about things that are that extreme most of the time, thankfully. But use your head. If you're going to make someone slow down a little bit, or you're going to have to stop and cause a big danger, go with the danger that is lesser. But even more importantly, use your speed to avoid that happening. So if you can speed up a little bit to stay in front of that person and not make them slow down, then you should do so. Or if you can slow down a little bit to give yourself a bigger gap between you and the car in front as you change lane, then you should do that too. That's quite difficult for learners to do because they're spending all their effort in looking at the mirrors. Quite often the steering starts to go, and most of the time their speed completely goes out the window. Quite often they come off the gas and just start slowing down. And then everyone behind starts catching up, and then they want to get past us. So you get even more people overtaking, and you kind of just you spiral down and get trapped. If that's happening, you need more practice. You might be in a situation that is too difficult for your level, or you might just be having a bad... Sometimes you can be pretty good, you can be ready for something, but then lose your confidence maybe on one part and bring it back. But keep practicing, keep trying, you'll get better. Well, I hope that helps. If it does, give the video a thumbs up. And if you're in the UK, check out my sponsors in the description, Collingwood and Confused. Collingwood are great because it allows you to drive a friend or family member's car without being added to their policy, which takes away a massive stress if they're supervising you, because they don't want you to lose them their no claims bonus. And if it's your own policy, that's not going to happen. If you're insuring your own car, I've found confused.com very competitive for new and young drivers. Please do use the links because I get a teeny tiny bit of money if you actually go ahead with these things, and that really does help me run this channel. Subscribe to get my future videos. I'm Richard, this is Conquer Driving, and until the next one, cheerio.